Everything around us is wearing down. Leave a car outside long enough, and it rusts. Leave a house alone long enough, and it falls apart. Leave your room alone long enough, and it does not organize itself. It gets worse. That is not just a casual observation. It points to a basic principle of the world we live in. Things tend toward disorder. They break down. They decay. They age. They wear out. The Bible describes the same reality. The heavens are the work of God's hands, but they will grow old like a garment. Creation is real, but this world is not moving upward into perfection by itself. It is wearing down. That matters when we talk about origins. The popular evolutionary story says the opposite. It says that over billions of years, things move from disorder to order, from simple to complex, from lifeless chemicals to living cells, and eventually from bacteria to human beings. But look at the world honestly. Nothing gets better by itself. All you have to do is nothing, and things deteriorate. They collapse. They break down. They rot. They rust. They die. So when a textbook tells children that humans probably evolved from bacteria billions of years ago, I want to slow down and ask a simple question. Is that what we actually observe in the world? Do we observe systems naturally building themselves into higher and higher complexity without design, information, and a mechanism to use energy? Some will answer, but the Earth receives energy from the sun. The Earth is an open system. That energy can overcome the tendency toward disorder. I understand the argument, but energy by itself is not enough. Adding energy does not automatically create order. In many cases, energy destroys. The sun adds energy to the roof of a house, but does not organize the roof. It damages it. The sun adds energy to the paint on a car, but it does not improve the paint. It fades it. Heat, pressure, explosions, and radiation can all add energy, but that does not mean they create life, information, or design. Energy needs a mechanism to capture it and use it. A plant can use sunlight because it already has complex systems like chlorophyll and living cells. But that does not explain how those systems came into existence in the first place. That is the problem. A living cell is not simple. Even one plant cell is incredibly complex. It is full of structure, information, and machinery. You cannot explain that by saying, add sunlight. Energy without the right system is destructive, not creative. That is why I believe the evolutionary story conflicts with what we actually observe. The world does not naturally climb upward into more order by itself. It breaks down. It needs design. It needs information. It needs a creator. But this discussion does not stop with science. Ideas about origins shape how people see themselves. And when children are taught that they are only animals, we should not be surprised when it affects how they think and behave. If a child is told year after year that he's just a highly evolved animal, that message does something. It lowers his view of human life. It changes his view of morality. It weakens the idea that he is accountable to God. What you believe affects how you behave. If man is made in the image of God, then human life is sacred. If man is only an animal, then morality becomes unstable. If there is no creator, then who decides right and wrong? The individual? The government? The majority? The strongest voice in the room? That is a dangerous place to stand. People often say, there are no absolutes, but even that statement tries to act like an absolute. If someone says, there is no absolute truth, the obvious question is, are you absolutely sure? Without God, morality has no final foundation. A person may still have opinions about right and wrong. A society may still make laws. But the question remains, what makes one thing truly right and another thing truly wrong? If every person decides morality for himself, society becomes chaos. One person says, I decide what is right. Another person says the same thing. But what happens when their desires collide? The book of Judges describes a time when every man did what was right in his own eyes. That is not freedom. That is moral collapse. The biblical answer is different. Right and wrong are not invented by man. They come from God. Thus saith the Lord is the only final foundation for moral absolutes. That is why education is so important. A classroom does not merely transfer information. It forms a child's worldview. It teaches him what he is, where he came from, whether life has purpose, and whether morality is real. Many teachers may simply follow the textbook. They may not realize the worldview being passed on. But when a child is told that life began as slime and slowly evolved into man, that teaching is not neutral. It directly challenges the biblical view of creation, human dignity, sin, and accountability. I believe science class should teach science, things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. But when textbooks present an unobserved story of origins as settled fact, students are being trained in a worldview, not just in science. There's also a legal and cultural side to this issue. Some people act as if creation cannot even be mentioned in public schools. But the question is not whether a teacher can discuss evidence and alternative viewpoints. The deeper question is why one worldview is treated as unquestionable truth while the biblical worldview is pushed out as if it has no place in the conversation. Students should be allowed to hear the evidence. They should be allowed to ask questions. They should be allowed to distinguish between observable science and philosophical claims about the past. This matters because ideas have consequences. In the middle of the 20th century, American textbooks contained far less evolutionary teaching than they later did. After the space race began, especially after Sputnik, the education system was heavily reshaped. Evolution became much more prominent in science curricula. Textbooks were rewritten. The public school system began to teach a very different story about origins. At the same time, prayer was removed from public schools, and the culture began to change rapidly. Family breakdown increased. Sexual immorality increased. Drug use increased. Violence increased. Test scores declined. Society became more confused about truth, morality, and authority. Now, I am not saying every social problem has only one cause. Life is more complicated than that, but we would be foolish to pretend worldview has no consequences. If you teach a generation that they are animals, do not be shocked when many begin to live without a sense of sacred responsibility. If you teach them there are no absolutes, do not be shocked when they reject moral boundaries. If you remove God from the foundation of their thinking, do not be shocked when they struggle to explain right and wrong. A culture cannot reject the Creator and keep the benefits of a creator-based morality forever. Eventually, the foundation starts to crack. That does not mean every unbeliever is immoral. It does not mean every person who accepts evolution behaves badly. That is not the point. The point is about foundations. On what basis do we say human life is sacred? On what basis do we say murder is wrong? On what basis do we say truth matters? On what basis do we say children should be protected? The Christian answer is clear. Human life is sacred because man is made in the image of God. Morality is real because God is real. Right and wrong are not decided by public opinion. They are rooted in the character and commands of the Creator. That is why I believe the origins debate is not a side issue. It reaches into everything. It reaches into science. It reaches into education. It reaches into morality. It reaches into law. It reaches into family. It reaches into the soul of a nation. If the Bible is true, then man is not an animal trying to invent meaning. Man is a creature made by God, accountable to God, and in need of redemption. That gives life dignity, but it also gives life responsibility. And that is exactly what modern culture often wants to escape. The world does not want a creator who owns it. It does not want a lawgiver who defines right and wrong. It does not want judgment. It wants freedom without accountability. But that kind of freedom does not produce life. It produces decay. Just like the physical world tends toward disorder when left alone, a society tends toward moral disorder when it abandons God. Families break down. Children lose direction. Schools lose clarity. Laws become confused. People still use words like justice, truth, and rights, but the foundation underneath those words is gone. The answer is not fear. The answer is truth. We need to return to the foundation. God created. Man is made in his image. Sin is real. Morality is not invented by culture. The Bible is not outdated, and children need more than information. They need truth. Real science should not be feared. Honest questions should not be silenced. But neither should we allow a philosophy of evolution to be presented as unquestionable fact, while the biblical worldview is dismissed before the conversation even begins. So ask yourself honestly, what are we teaching the next generation about who they are? Are we teaching them they are accidents of time and chance? Or are we teaching them they're created in the image of God, morally accountable, and valuable because their Creator gave them life? Because what a generation believes about its origin will shape what it becomes.